What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Meko, once again joined by my guy Morgan here. And Morgan, we're here to do another unpleasant film breakdown. This is probably going to be one of the more painful ones. Um, However, like it is a little different. We do get to at least focus on the offensive side, which is, I guess, good. We're not completely blaming the defense for everything in this game, but this was a really ugly offensive game, man.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier, Miko. You know, a lot of people, the trendy thing is to blame Aaron Glenn and to blame the defense, but we've talked about it up and down. The defense was never going to be the strength of this team as it's currently constructed, right? So it
Yeah,
falls on the offense, man, and the offense let the Lions down, plain and simple, against the Bears. Coming out of the half, I just charted everything, and I've gotten through the film. It was three consecutive three and outs, a fumble, the Graham Glasgow Goff exchange fumble, and
hmm
then a turnover on downs on four plays. So like that's
that's your
just
third quarter.
inexcusable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's it.
well, and
But
I kind of said as much yesterday when I was kind of like recapping the game with from my own perspective. Is just like I thought the defense played fairly well. Like specifically starting in that second quarter, we saw them really start to ramp things up, and I think that was like a really good marriage between how well the defense was playing and how well the offense was playing. The offense was finally starting to be able to put some points up. You get into the third quarter though, the offense completely stalls out, and the defense holds on for as long as they possibly can. But one false start or one offsides by Aiden Hutchinson, and then next the floodgates have kind of opened on the defensive side of things.
yeah, and that's where you're going to get in trouble, right? You keep putting your defense in a tough spot in critical situations, and it's not the most talented or dominant unit right now, and they're going to make mistakes, and it really stunk because you have that happen, and it's some of your best players, right? Like with Hutch jumping off sides, and
Yeah,
that's a tough look. But hopefully they'll come back with a vengeance and be ready to go this coming week against Denver, right?
yeah, that's the hope. And hopefully, again, it's going to be a tough matchup, I think, once again, defensively, specifically for the passing game. And hopefully, Ben Johnson and Jared Goff can get something figured out. Because, like we said, starting out, this offensive effort that they put out specifically in the passing game just wasn't doing it for anyone really. And we're going to start off here with a play where the Lions did have one of the few opportunities to get a big play. Jamison Williams being lined up on the outside, and just not enough things go right for the Lions to be able to take advantage of this play.
No, and it stinks too because we were talking about it. It was a really nice release from JMO off the line.
Yeah,
And this is where it's going to be difficult to guard JMO, once he, gets more targets and is just getting more acclimated into the offense, because it's going to be tough to jam him, because if you jam him and you miss and he gets a clean release off of you, you're in chase mode against, I don't know, probably the second fastest player in the NFL right now. So, yeah, this is just bad timing here. Uh, I wish Goff would have uncorked this a little bit earlier, but
yeah,
what can you do?
yeah. And we'll break it down because I do think there are some legitimate like gripes in regards to why this play isn't successful. But then there's also some things that I think schematically that we can kind of pinpoint here. And then there's still some things that I think Jared Goff has to take ownership of to be able to make this play work.
Yeah, and it's they blitz. The Bears brought a lot of heat, and at Goff, they wanted to get him uncomfortable. They saw what worked early on in the first matchup when the Bears were at Ford Field, when the Lions won. But David Montgomery does a halfway decent job of picking up Tremaine Edmonds, and Goff needs to hit this, especially with as fast as Jameson is. He needs to let this go a lot earlier. Give JMO a chance to catch it, make it a JMO ball or nobody's ball type of situation. Like lay it out there, man. Let him get it. Let him track it down. He doesn't have to be a one-trick pony that way, but right now, defenses are creeping up against the line of scrimmage. Like just look at this front right here that the Bears are presenting, right? Like they have
Yeah.
one deep safety and they got a bunch of bodies on the line of scrimmage. So they know the Lions can run the ball. Everyone in the league probably knows the Lions want to run the ball, but they have five linemen on the line of scrimmage. They blitz Edmonds in the A gap, and yeah, this just needs to be thrown earlier. Give him a chance, man. Right?
Yeah. I mean, again, this is where I think some of Goff's physical limitations start to show up because he doesn't have that type of arm to like make this a layup. He can't just this isn't a flick of the wrist type of throw for him. And I know a lot of people like to say like, hey, he can't throw the ball deep. And it's not that he can't. It's just for Jared Goff, it's an effort play. Like everything has to, you know, work in his favor in regards to he needs to have a clean pocket. He needs to be able to step up. He needs to be able to wind up to get that ball out there. And when those things are taken away because the Bears are bringing more pressure, well, that's when you get a play like this where, again, it ends up coming up short. And yes, part of that's because he has pressure in his face. He's throwing off his back foot. But there are quarterbacks in this league that make this throw off their back foot and can still make this, a nice, again, moonshot to their wide receiver on the outside.
Yeah, excellent point, Miko. And if this ball is even like in JMO's vicinity, you might be able to draw a DPI right here, as cheap as it sounds. But this is how you draw these ticky tack defensive pass interferences, right, Miko? You
Yeah.
get a really fast receiver, and he's burnt right here. He's cooked right off the line of scrimmage. He's not even in phase anymore, and right there he's grabbing. Maybe you could get him for defensive holding. So yeah, just give him a shot. And yeah, to your point, this isn't something that Goff is comfortable with, just having a flick of the wrist off platform. He needs to step into that thing, and especially if he's throwing to Jameson, because you got to throw it out there for him.
Yeah. And there's a couple other things that really bothered me about that play, Morgan. I think we've seen this a couple times. And I think a lot of times when we've seen it in games, a lot of the blame has gone to Jameson about, hey, why can't you find the ball type of situation? And I've kind of been on JMO's side of like, when he has leverage in a specific part of the field, in this regard, like on this play, he had inside leverage. Why does the ball have to go to the outside? Like, again, it kind of still gets back to what we're saying. Lay the ball out in front of him so that he can just continue to run underneath it and make a play instead of having to like look for it because it's not where he's expecting it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been instances where JMO didn't find the ball, but that it hasn't been that way in a while. It's just they're usually just kind of skipping at the back of his feet, and I'm sure that's frustrating because
Yeah.
he's probably thinking, I got him cooked. I'm thinking he's going to throw up the mailbox, like hit me with it. I can't wait till that day comes when they can get in rhythm, or somebody can with JMO. But yeah,
Yeah. And so to take a break from the offense, because we're definitely going to get back into that. Like we said, the defense for the most part had a good day. But starting early in that game, specifically the first quarter, they were still struggling. They were still struggling with a lot of the things that I think we've seen this defense primarily struggle with. One of those things being contained, and also when generating pressure, being able to finish those plays and get the quarterback down when you have that opportunity. And on this play, the Bears are facing a third and long. Lions have a prime opportunity to get them off the field, possibly force a punt and be in favorable field position. And like we've seen too many times, Morgan, two guys have an opportunity to get him on the ground and both guys miss.
yeah, and this is a theme, right? Like, and again, to Aaron Glenn's credit, they were aggressive, man. They brought pressure at Fields. They made him uncomfortable, and they got hands on him. Like this play, Anzalone has his hands on him. Hutch gets ridden by. Pretty good job by Darnell Wright. Like he's beat initially,
Mm-hmm.
but those tackles are taught. Just ride him right on, right on by. Give your quarterback a chance to step up and dip that shoulder and evade it, because then he can reset his feet. And yeah, this is. I mean, it's a tough play because Fields is in the 1 percentile in terms of athletic quarterbacks. Like there's not
Sure.
many who get away from this. Like you can count them on one hand, in my opinion, of the guys who get away from this, not get sacked on the 1 yard line. But at the end of the day, that's who you're playing, and it's a division foe. You just saw him a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this needs to be cleaner because you take a gamble like Hutch did here, and you end up paying the price.
Yeah, and so again, this is going to give me another opportunity to kind of harp on something that I've been fairly consistent with Morgan when it comes to Hutch, and it's his tendency to over pursue his rush lanes, right? And it's one of those things, like you kind of pointed out, offensive tackles are taught like if they can't beat you straight up, their goal is to just to keep you away from their quarterback. It's not necessarily to get a pancake or anything like that. It's like my job is to keep my quarterback clean. So if I can keep you away from him and just allow your momentum to carry you away from him, that's what I'm going to do. And I think Hutch finds himself in that situation way too often. when it comes down to him rushing the quarterback.
Yep, I agree. You know, that this is part of the reason why he's so high in pressure rate, but then he's only has 6 sacks, I believe, on the season, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of it boils down to finishing, and there is an art to that. There have been plenty of pass rushers before Hutch who have struggled with like getting sacks despite always being around the quarterback.
Hmm.
So hopefully it's something he figures out because the pressure production is there. It's just not the traditional numbers aren't there yet because it's plays like that. It's just and he got one against the Bears, but it was a coverage sack more or less where Fields just had to eat it.
Yeah. And so specifically, like for those who may be wondering, like, then what do I expect Hutch to do in that situation? When you've already clearly beat, like he clearly has a step on Darnell Wright, instead of trying to rip through and try to go around him, like use your momentum to be able to stop on a dime, allow him to go by you so that you can basically line up Justin Fields. What you were able, like, if you kind of go back and watch that play, he's trying to like already go past Justin Fields and trying to reach back and get him. You're putting yourself in a really dangerous situation. Like, one, obviously, what happened in the play where Justin Fields was able to step up and run for more yards, but like you also put yourself at risk for injury. You could hyperextend an elbow. You could, you know, there's so many other things that could go wrong in that situation where if you were able to just keep your target in front of you, you have a much better opportunity to make a play on the quarterback in that situation.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And part of that's just staying disciplined, right? Like not you kind of get greedy and you're trying to make a play, and that's what I honestly attribute to his play later in the game where he just called that game where he slanted inside on Fields' touchdown run. It's just you're pressing, you're doing a little too much because you in the back of your mind you have to,
Yeah.
and it's burning you because especially against Fields. Like you can't do that. You can't get aggressive, or you can't get greedy, and you just gotta, to your point, stay flat and just stay on that trajectory and try to close it down on them, like the coaches preach.
Yeah. And let's be clear. Like I said in my video yesterday as well, I do think Hutch had a good game. Like I don't, or not a good game. I thought he had an okay game. Like I thought, like he started out pretty well. Those pressures were really starting to be meaningful. And as that entire defense got wore down, I think Morgan, like what you're saying, he started to press a little bit, and I think he started to feel like, okay, we have to make a play, and that's not how this coaching staff wants their players to think. I don't think they want them to think overly individualistically that like one person has to make a play. Like you have to make a play collectively, and hopefully this game will be a really good learning experience for him going into Denver.
Yeah, Miko. From what I heard from people on the beat, were saying that he was distraught, like the most upset they'd ever seen him. So, yeah, hopefully it sticks with him a little bit and he can bring it here against the Broncos because it was just strange because him, Hutchinson had a bad game. St. Brown had a pretty bad game, especially by his standards. It was a terrible
Yeah.
game by his standards. So yeah, hopefully it's a nice little springboard to get right. I hate to say that term. I hate it, but
Well, but no, but I think that's again, if we go back to this offense, that's what this offense needs as well. They just need some sort of springboard to get back into their rhythm of how they play offense because right now, whether it's Ben Johnson in his play calling or Jared Goff in his ability of again how he's playing quarterback or how his inability to probably read the defenses properly, something needs to fix it. Something needs to be fixed in order for this team to get back into the consideration of being one of the top offenses in the league.
yeah, and this is unfortunate. This is early in the game. It's the first quarter. It's third down, third and long because this is in the same series that Graham Glasgow got called for tripping on the one play. So yeah, and we were talking about it before we got on, Miko. Like I don't know who's hot here, who should have been hot. Goff never even really looks to the right where Sam Laporta is, but
Yeah,
Laporta runs an in-breaker anyways towards the trouble. But the concept that Goff was looking at to his left, there was just so many people. There's just a ton of defenders there, a ton of bodies. And yeah, Taylor Decker loses his rep pretty decisively to Yannick Ngakoue. And yeah, Coyote gets walked back. So yeah, no, this was a frustrating. I watched this one a bunch because I was just trying to figure out who should have been hot. Should Goff had seen this pre-snap? If
Yeah.
so, where does he need to go with the ball? Because there's not really anywhere for him to go with the ball, right, Miko? The way they ran it.
I think even if protection holds up well, I don't know where he thought that he was going to go with this ball. I know Taylor Decker does. He gets beat pretty early on in this rep. He's off balance, and Ngakwe is able to just kind of walk him back into the quarterback. But even if that pressure doesn't come, I don't know where this football was going to go because Josh Reynolds is covered up pretty well. Amon-Ra St. Brown gets picked up in the flat. Like you said, Sam Laporta is coming into the trouble, and Leaf is going complete opposite side of the field. So this is where I get back to like I think a lot of people were here. I don't like this type of play calling from Ben Johnson because I don't understand what this play is supposed to accomplish.
Yeah, especially in this down and distance, Miko. To your point, like I don't know, and they brought the blitz. Tremaine Edmonds comes. Uh, Someone's got to be an outlet for Goff, and typically the way I've always, taught, and the way I look at football, you want to
Mm-hmm.
throw where the blitz comes from, right? So in theory, you'd be throwing it to where the top of Sam Laporta's route before he breaks inside, just because that's where the blitz came from. You
Sure.
want to throw into the green grass, make things easy for your quarterback, and they didn't even have anyone there for him. And credit to the rest, like David Montgomery's blocking his butt off with Tremaine Edmonds. Like he had a pretty good rep here, honestly. Like this is a good win, but didn't matter because it was strange to see Decker have so much trouble with his anchor like this because Yannick Ngakoue is more of a finesse rusher. I
Yeah.
would say it's not like he's super heavy. Like he's a powerful athlete. Don't get me wrong, but this was strange, right? To see Decker have such issues with being able to anchor and just slow somebody like Ngakoue down.
Well, especially on a rep like this one, this looks really weird. And I know, the first injury report came out for the Lions today, and I know Taylor Decker was on it for a back injury. So I don't know if maybe he tweaked his back earlier and, he was maybe a little compromised. I agree with you that like I don't like the necessarily the design of this play. I also think we kind of talked about this earlier. I do think there's some blame to go on Jared Goff for not being able to recognize that there's a possibility of a blitz coming his way because these guys are lined up in man. Like you said, like there's no one on the other side of the field. I don't know how much autonomy that Jared Goff has to communicate with his receivers and change things up, but like you would like for him to even look at Sam and change Sam's route specifically, or at least let him know, like, hey, you're hot. Like, if something doesn't look right, I'm coming to you first, so I need you to get open as quick as possible.
Yep. And to your point too earlier, like it would look like Sam would be the hot receiver, but Goff doesn't even look over there.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know the design, the concept, everything. I'm not a fan for sure, like you said.
Yeah. And so those are the types of things that, again, that really put this Lions offense behind, right? You have the penalty that puts you in a third and long. Then you're unable to convert, and I think this speaks to a larger problem as a whole that I think a lot of fans are talking about, which is like when this team gets behind Morgan, when they're stuck in a third and 10 or they are in a first and 15 or whatever the case may be, their playbook seems to shrink drastically on plays that help them get into position to convert.
Yeah, and it's very much seems like they're keeping a very tight schedule, right? They want to if they're going to face a third down, which they're almost betting that they will, they want it to be 3rd and 4 or less. That's what they in my
Mm-hmm.
head they probably have that number as a quote unquote manageable number. So there's a lot of Ryan Matthews, one of our coworkers at POD, hates it, man. The first down run, the second down run, then you got to throw, and
Mm-hmm.
you're putting more pressure on Goff because it's an obvious passing down, and they can heat him up with blitzes, or they just might, someone might win a rep like we just saw against Decker. And yeah, it seems like defenses have adjusted to Ben Johnson a bit and Ben Johnson with Goff because for so long, everything's been between the hashes for Goff. They, a lot of it's down
Mm-hmm.
the middle. It's why he loves throwing to guys like Laporta and St. Brown. but then, and when he does throw it out towards the boundary, it's been, some of these concepts that he's just throwing it in the turkey hole between the corner and the safety and cover two, like we talked about. So yeah, it seems like Ben Johnson and Goff need to adjust to their adjustment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I've been kind of saying the same thing, right? Like we need this offense needs to get to a point where they're willing to challenge defenses on the outside because so far defenses are expecting you, like you said, they're expecting the in breaking routes. They're expecting everything to be between the hashes, whether it's to Laporta, whether it's to St. Brown. And when it's not those things, they're expecting screens. And then it's the occasional deep shot. But again, those deep shots are coming at really weird moments, like we saw with JMO on the 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 6, whatever that was. A really weird time to call a play like that, especially when you have Saint coming open on a crossing route. And then it's other times where I think that they're just trying to be a little too cute in situations where it's like, just run those crossing routes that you were running earlier, and you can probably still pick up that first down. And I said to you earlier, I'm still wondering where the hell all of those like deep post routes, deep corner routes that Josh Reynolds was like becoming famous for. I want to know where those went because I feel like we haven't seen one of those plays since we came out of the bye.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I want to say it's because the defenses have figured it out. Like they're condensing, they're not stretching out any because, like you said, the Lions haven't really hit on a deep shot in a bit. Like they hit on the one to JMO against the first game against the Bears,
Mm-hmm.
but it's been few and far between when they've tried and then even less but connected, right? So I feel
Yeah.
like defenses have adjusted, and this is a copycat league. You can fully expect Sean Payton and the Broncos to look at what the Bears and the Packers have been doing over the last couple weeks against the Lions and try to replicate it. So,
And
yeah,
it
it's
wouldn't
going to take.
surprise me.
Go ahead.
It wouldn't
Yeah.
surprise me. I mean, we'll talk about it when we do like the film study for the Broncos because I know they struggle against the run. It would not surprise me at all if Lions go very conservative and they're just like, we're just going to run the ball 30, 40 times between the R2 running backs and then just try to control the pace that way to keep Jared Goff out of situations where they're just going to blitz him.
Yeah, and I think they can win games that way, but it's just so the offense just feels limited, man. I was telling one of my friends when I was talking about the game, like if it's like 3rd and 8 or longer, I'm just nervous. I'm like not even really hopeful of picking up a first down. I'm really just hoping they don't turn it over and they can let Jack Fox punt it.
Yeah.
And
And it's,
that's
and,
crappy.
yeah. And it's a weird place to be at this point in the season. But
Hmm.
let's move on to the next play. We have another, again, this is another third down play, and it speaks exactly to what you're talking about, Morgan, where the Lions are in, I believe, a 3rd and 11, uh, and they need a play. They need a play that can again get a good chunk play. And you and I sat down and looked at this play a couple times, and it just doesn't quite make sense on what the expectation is for a play like this.
No, and this is one of the situations we talked about too, Miko. This is this in the second half, and the first down. First down was a handoff to Jameer Gibbs for no gain. Second down was a handoff to Jameer Gibbs for -1, so they lost a yard. So it's 3rd and 11, and there's like we talked about earlier. They're in zone. They have a too high look, so they got a too high shell. It's going to be hard to throw against this unless you get that kind of beater.
Yeah.
And it looks like Goff never even looks away from Laporta. He knows where he wants to go and
Mm-hmm.
throws it pretty close to that. That's double coverage in my opinion. Tremaine Edmonds was just sitting on that and
Yeah.
was able to break on the ball. And yeah, that's a hospital ball that could be intercepted. There's just so much I don't like about this. But we talked about it earlier that no one really open again. St. Brown and JMO end up kind of close to each other, with JMO running the deep corner, if you will, and then St. Brown running, what is that? Another version of a corner, but looks like he should have been around the 30. I don't know. It just doesn't look, it looks jumbled, right, Miko?
Yeah. It's something that I don't understand necessarily what the concept is. I know that we've seen them run these types of layered routes before, Morgan, where you'll have someone like Leaf who's running a short out. You'll have someone like Amon Ra run like a corner route, and then typically JMO was running a deep seam route, and you're hoping that like to confuse the corner and hopefully get the corner to peel off and pick up the corner route. that Amon-Ra's running, but like that never happens. Amon-Ra's route goes a little bit deeper than I think it probably should, to your point. And JMO's route isn't very straight. It's very much like you said, it starts to look like a corner route. And I don't necessarily understand why that would be the case. I don't understand why that route isn't a little bit more just up, up the sideline type of play or up the numbers necessarily.
Yeah, just kind of stay flat. Don't bend it back out. Just And then to your point earlier, we were talking about like St. Brown gets so deep, he doesn't really put six in a bind with Khalif. He's just down there sitting on Khalif, and St. Brown is so deep, he's back there with 20 or with Jalen Johnson, 33. And that's how Jalen Johnson, it's the same concept that Jalen Johnson came up with that pick earlier, because he was sitting in a deep third just like this, and he sat towards the sideline and he let Goff cut that thing loose, and he immediately stepped in front of it. That was an easy pick, man.
Yeah.
But it speaks to, I think the Bears were coming out of their bye. They had just played the Lions one time a couple weeks ago and saw what they do. And I think they had a good plan, man. I kind of chalked this up. I give the Lions stunk it up, don't get me wrong, but the Bears came out with a pretty good plan for the team they are right now, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. That's another layer to the problems and the frustration that fans have, is that it does feel like teams are starting to make those adjustments and that teams are starting to cue in on what the Lions like to do, and that it's almost as simple as, and I'm not saying that, again, doing these things are simple, but the game plan is like, hey, let's get them off schedule, right? If we can keep them getting 1 or 2 yard gains and hopefully get them into 3rd and 8 and longer, we have a good chance of getting off the field, because they don't seem to have the plays or the trust in their quarterback to make the plays to pick up those types of downs and distances.
Yeah, and Jared Goff's depth of target has been down, down, down as of recently. They're not pushing the ball down the field. There's a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage or just beyond it. And defenses are going to keep on, and they know. Listen, I love that the Lions love running the football. Like, they've won a lot of football games this year off of pounding the rock and breaking off big runs and just beating people up. But at the end of the day, this is the NFL. You're going to have to throw it to win it in some instances, because defenses are going to commit 8, 9 people in the box and get downhill and make you throw it. And that's the recipe right now to beating the Lions. That's how I would try to beat the Lions for sure, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing that's crazy is that I find it interesting that it took that long for this to be the strategy, because I thought that would be the strategy coming in. Like,
Real.
I was always a little concerned that there would be a drop off for the offense, because I always felt like, well, the key to getting Jared Goff to perform poorly isn't overly complicated. It's get him off schedule, apply a lot of pressure, and he will make mistakes. He will rush his process, and that's not his ideal scenario to work within. But I think the thing that the Lions were doing early in the season was that they were doing, first of all, they were running the ball really well, which then allowed them to go into play action. They did a lot more. I feel like they were doing more bootlegs and a lot more of these deep routes where Josh Reynolds was getting open. At one point in time, Josh Reynolds was one of the top receivers for, plays beyond 20 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That has since tailored off since JMO got, like, I almost feel like since JMO got activated. But the thing that's crazy is that, like, they haven't thrown those plays to JMO. It's just they just stopped throwing them completely.
Yeah, Meko, and I really want to think, especially after watching the film of the Bears game, it just seems like defenses are flooding that area of the field. Those intermediate areas of the field. They're gonna, they know where Goff wants to throw the ball and where he doesn't want to throw the ball. So I really do. I think it's going to take a bit of Jared Goff and maybe even Ben Johnson to an extent, getting a little bit uncomfortable with, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, rather, right? So
Yeah.
having, it's gonna take some. Maybe they move the pocket more for Goff. Make things a little easier early on, like you said. Get him out on some boots. Slow things down. But right now, everything looks disjointed. Outside of the run game, everything looks blah. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look terrible. I'm not burning the ships down, but right now it looks pretty blah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, with you saying that, like, yes, the run game has looked good for the most part, except for this play. And again, this becomes a timing thing, and I think it still speaks to what you were talking about, where I think teams are becoming very in depth and in tune with what the Lions want to do, and the Lions aren't countering what these teams are doing to them. And again, I don't know how much autonomy, Jared Goff has to audible out of situations like this. I don't know if he's just going into these situations like, okay, I still think this play is going to work. But you pointed this out to me. This is a loaded box on 4th and 1. They're going to run a delayed, like misdirection run, to Jameer Gibbs on the left side or on the right side, I mean. And this just doesn't seem like this should be the play.
No, I don't like anything about this. The down and distance. So it's 4th and 1. It's 12-13 left in the fourth. And it just seems like the Bears know exactly what the Lions want to do because they've shown it time and time again. They're going to run the ball in these situations, almost in like a, we know you know what we're going to do, but you can't stop it. But hey, the Bears stopped it to their credit. Like Brisker comes screaming in off the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's just upfield penetration galore. And this is a backbreaker for the Lions because, you're once again putting your defense in a really tough spot on their side of the 50. They're basically, 10 yards away from being in the red zone as it stands there. So, yeah, this is bad all over. And this is defenses, again, keying in on, like you said, Meko, what the Lions want to do in certain down and distances.
And so this is the thing that I find really funny. And again, I can't help but exaggerate this enough. I don't know what Jared Goff is allowed to do at the line, but when you look at this play from the top, you see how far Jalen Johnson is off JMO? Like, why isn't this just like a check? Like, and we're just gonna swing pass because
Uh,
we need a yard. That's all we need.
That's a really good point too. And normally I know Goff comes to the line with a couple checks, but maybe this is really what Ben Johnson wanted. But yeah, that'd have been sweet if they'd, just checked into a little smoke, just whip it to JMO. And if he makes Jalen Johnson miss, see ya. He's, that's to the crib. But
Well, I was gonna say
ah,
like there's one safety deep in the middle of the field. If
not
JMO makes
catching.
him miss, this is six. Like I said, I'm saying like I'm talking about just doing like a wide receiver bubble screen type of thing. Even if they had JMO run a slant here, that's six.
Absolutely. I got a better chance of, I don't even know, man, catching a reindeer than Eddie Jackson has at catching Jamison Williams. Okay. No disrespect to Eddie Jackson, but no.
Yeah,
It's see ya. We already saw that the first time the Lions played the Bears. Remember when
exactly. Yeah,
JMO
when he caught Eddie Jackson flat footed. And
yeah,
so
caught him lacking?
it is this game, there's a lot of things to be frustrated about it. And I know you and I have both tried to be like trying not to be overly critical about one individual person or one individual, unit, but this game specifically, like it just jumps out at you that the offense just wasn't clicking in any form or fashion. Jared Goff wasn't seeing things. He wasn't, I don't know, like I continue to say, like he just doesn't look like the Jared Goff that we saw in the first half of the season. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if the Monstars came down and took his talent. Like I don't know what is going on, but it's frustrating. And all we have at this point, Morgan, is just hope that like, hey, Saturday's going to come around. They'll be at home. Maybe that home crowd will give them some juice, and Jared Goff can get back to playing the style of football that helped this team get to 9-4 in the first place, specifically the ninth
Yeah,
one.
absolutely. Hopefully, it can be 10 by Sunday morning. I'm right there with you, man. It's been limited the way he's turning the ball over. At the clip he is. I'm not. There weren't a ton of turnover worthy plays against the
Mm-hmm.
Bears, but he still turned it over. Well, three times total, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, because turnover on down. So, excuse me, and the two picks. Yeah, it needs to be. They need to keep him a little cleaner. Like that's part of it too. Like he's not one of them that you can, have a free runner and have him deal with it. You got to keep him clean. You got to keep him on schedule. And to an extent, it does limit what you can do offensively and situational football. But at the same time, the Lions won. Like to your point, the Lions won a lot of games that way. So I don't know.
yeah, and I do think there are things to do. If you're sitting here like, well, the offensive line is giving up pressure, then it's like I go back to like, well, where the hell did all those bootleg plays go where they used to get Jared Goff on the move a little bit? And
Mm-hmm.
you get him on the outside, maybe with Panay still kind of in the picture, for him to be able to survey the field, allow a route to develop, and him be able to still throw it deep down the field. But there's a lot of things that I think this team can still do. I don't want to believe that the team we saw in the first half of the season is just gone, but it has to start this Saturday with the Broncos. They have to get back to showcasing some level of offensive competency. It doesn't even have to be dominance, just being competent of moving the football down the field and doing that for 4 quarters. Like the third quarter has to come to a stop at some point.
Yeah, excellent point, Miko. They gotta those giant lulls, like where there's 5 consecutive series where you do absolutely nothing. You put your defense in a bind, even if they're all 3 and outs. That's a lot of time spent. Like that whole third quarter is going to be the defense is going to spend on the field, and that's how you get yourself in trouble. So at least they don't got to go back to the 40-point mega offense they were earlier in the season right away. Like, that'd be nice, but at
Yeah,
least
but
at the bare minimum, play complementary football, right?
yeah, at the very least, I think that's all any of us should be asking for at this point.
Stop
But
turning the ball over,
and
please.
that, please stop doing
That's
that.
it. Do that and
But
making them, yeah. Oof.
But that's gonna do it for us this week, guys. Let us know in the comment section below. What were some of the top plays that you specifically remember from this game that really either frustrated you, or even some of the good things that maybe happened in this game? Obviously, we didn't highlight many of the good because, yeah, we're still a little salty about this loss. But stay tuned to the YouTube channel. Like I said, later this week, Morgan and I are going to come back. We're going to break down the Broncos and kind of talk about what they're doing well and how and why they're surging the way they are right now. But if you're looking for any more coverage on the Detroit Lions, you already know you can head over to pridedetroit.com. Check out all of the latest content that we have over there. And be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell over here on YouTube, so that way you can be notified every time we upload new videos and every time we go live over here on YouTube. But with all that said, I'm Meko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.